Hello, thanks for joining me. My name's Leanne. Welcome to my crafty cupboard. Today I'm going to share with you how I make the little needle books, like in my short video that people have been asking for a tutorial for. I hope you enjoy it and stick around. Now I'm going to batch make these needle books so that I can have them as little gifts to give away to all my sewing friends when I see them. But you can follow the same process just to make yourself one. So as you can see, I'm just cutting a strip of felt, and that's what I'm using for the needle book base. And my inspiration comes from the actual needle books not needle books that you buy, but you know when you buy a case of needles, they're usually in a piece of cloth, and there's at least one, but often two, little sort of channels where you can insert the needles into, so they're not just going into the flat piece of felt. And don't get too hung up about the measurements on these things. You do whatever you like. So this is my method. So we're going to sew a seam here, and you can see I'm just using my 1/4 inch foot on my sewing machine, and then we're going to open out that seam and squash it flat and stitch again along the seam where you've squished it flat, and that gives you the little channel to put your sewing needle in. You can just do one, or if you would like extra security for your needles, you do a second row the same way, so the top and bottom. And you can absolutely hand sew this. So if you're only doing one, I would hand sew it. But because I want to batch make here, I'm just stitching along a whole length of felt. Now we need the cover fabric, so you can actually use a pretty pattern fabric if you like. That's what I did on the one in my shorts video, but you can just do a plain fabric that you have and then do some pretty slow stitch over the top of it. So I'm just cutting a strip, and then you sew it all together along one edge. Time to turn it in the right way. This tool is genius. I bought it a million years ago. It's essentially just a tube and a chopstick, and it makes turning things in the right way a breeze. So now I've essentially got my tube of fabric all turned in the right way. So this means that I've got no raw edges on my needlebook, but again, that's a complete design choice. If you're a slow stitcher, you might love the frayed edges, and so therefore you won't do the step that I've just done. Righto, so it's time to sew the iron the felt flat and iron our little tube of cover material flat, and then let's get into cutting them up into their little segments to use. So I'm using 3 inches. Am I? 1, 2, 3. Can I count? I think it's 3 inches, or is it 4? Let's look again. So I'm using 4 inches as my guide. So this is the front and back cover that will be folded in half. And so cutting them up like this, I'm going to have these two raw edges either side, but I'm going to take them to the machine and just tuck in the little edge and sew the seam closed. Righto, let's cut this felt up. You see, my sewing's a bit skewy. Let's try and, if I cut it a bit bigger here, then I can cut off the dodgy, crooked bit. So, again, I worked very quickly. No stress, no fuss. But if you wanted to, you could absolutely have ruled lines on your felt to make sure that it's straight all the way. And of course, you do not need a cutting mat, a ruler and a rotary cutter. You can just use scissors to cut these up. So I'm just edge stitching these covers now. I had ironed in already the little seam, and I'm just chain sewing them. It makes the machine a little bit happier when you've got something already going through it when you put the next bit. Now I'm just going to use this ribbon. So this is just a little silk ribbon that I have, very pretty. I'm going to use that around a button to tie the needle book closed. You don't have to have a closure. You could just have it as is, or you could do a little loop of elastic. But I quite like the prettiness and the simplicity of using a silk ribbon in this way. So you can see this is a handy thing to keep your scraps for if you are a silk ribbon embroiderer. You do end up with these little tails that are too small to do anything with, and they do come in handy for this sort of thing if you're just making one needle book. See? That's how it's going to go. Right, so I've stitched them all down, and now I'm just going to snip them away. Time for the fun part, the embellishing. So I've just got a couple of scraps here. So as I mentioned, I keep some scraps all in a bag ready for this purpose, and you can see over there in the background I've just got little snippets of white offcuts that I've done some pretty little stitching on. And I'll use those in these as well. Just simple running stitch to put those pieces down. It truly is a great idea to have projects in mind for using up your scrap pieces, because otherwise, like I mentioned, they just become clutter in your room, don't they? So this is one idea, little needlebooks. Another idea is I have got videos on how I use hexagons. So I have a project with little quilt as you go hexagons. So keeping the hexagons with the scraps. So if the scrap's big enough to cut the hexagon out of, I cut the hexagons straight away, put them away in my little project bag. And then whenever I'm feeling that lull between projects, you know, when you sort of don't feel like doing, you don't know, you're frustrated, you want to do something, you don't know what you want to do, so you can just pick that up. So sometimes I do the embroidery that's going to go on the front of it, and then sometimes I'm piecing together the little hexagons. So that's a really great thing to do with your scraps as well. How about you? What do you like to do with your scrap pieces of fabric? How do you organise them? Do you like to organise them by size or by colour? Or is there just a random box filled to the brim with scrap pieces that you'll use one day? I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Let us know. By the way, thank you to those of you who do take the time to comment. It is so appreciated. It is how YouTube knows that our video is worth showing to anybody, and so without comments the videos don't exist. So all the hours of making the projects and all the hours of editing and uploading and writing the descriptions, etc., they're all for nothing if there's not a community out there getting behind the videos and leaving a comment. So I'd like to thank you very, very much to my kind friends who do leave comments. I know the effort that it takes, and I really appreciate you. I want a little something else here, and I'm not sure what. Should I use this little braid, or... This is such a pretty piece of lace, but it just gets lost on that floral, I think. I love this little flower button. That's going to look so cute. What do you think? Do you like it? Procrastination in progress. What to do? Oh. I can't believe it. That never happens on camera. It always takes several goes. Sometimes I edit, honestly, like 5-10 minutes out of footage to save you the pain of watching me thread a needle. While I'm thinking about further embellishment, let's just pop this little button down, because I'm sure of you. Very cute, you're staying. Wow. I got the needle threading right, but not the knot, huh? Let's try for a bigger knot. Hide and seek. Where did it go? Oh. So cute. Do you love buttons? I think we're all obsessed with buttons, aren't we? So this is a little crochet offcut that I bought. I'm pretty sure this was in a kit that I bought from Susanna from Vintage Blend Studio. I like it when people have already done the work of cutting up the crochet because, I find it impossible to do. And if the scissors have already taken to it, then I can feel less guilty. But this is just the thing. It's just the lovely size needed for this project. It looks very cute. If you heard before, I have a doily sanctuary in my home, so I too have gone out to vintage stores and second-hand stores, op shops, and bought beautiful doilies and bring them home, and they're just too beautiful to attack. And so I use them. I use them under vases. I use them to look at. The irony is in all of this, maybe you've done the same thing too. I used to have, a stash of these things that I had handed down to me or made myself, etc. And in downsizing to be able to move home once, I decided, look, these things have sat in the cupboard unused for the whole time here that I've had children, so it's time just to let them go, and I did. I kept a few special pieces that I use. So like I have a piece that my nan crocheted on my dressing table under the crystal tray. And then here I am all these years later, now going out trying to buy up other people's. Have you ever had that feeling when you go into second-hand stores and you're looking at something and you're thinking, is that mine? Is that mine? Could it be? You might see an old toy or an old book or something, and it's just, you had one exactly the same. And you're thinking, what if that's my exact one? So let's stitch down the felty part. So I'm just going to do a little running stitch with an embroidery thread all the way around. It's always fun pulling apart these things, isn't it? I often try and use like something solid and sturdy that I can wrap them around and separate against, like a lampshade pole, or it's handy when you've got another person around and you can say, here, hold the end of this for me. Yes, you guessed it. I saved you from the pain of the unthreading needle. I say unthreading because I was having trouble threading it for sure. What projects are you working on at the moment at your house? Or are you between projects, just dreaming of what could be next? Are you following along with maybe some of the bigger projects that are happening here on YouTube, like everything being inspired by Roxy's Journal of Stitchery? They're quite big projects now, aren't they? The still life projects, weren't they fabulous, watching what everybody did? And next is going to be the quilt. I'm still back in the field notes project. I haven't finished that one yet, and I'm not going to start another major project without having finished that first. So I know exactly what I want to do for all the prompts. It's just finding that time and that motivation. Sometimes it has to be the right project for how you're feeling, doesn't it? I do gravitate towards small projects. I really like to work small and to do little stitching. Same with my drawings and things as well, when I like to do tiny. I'm obsessed with miniature. Oh my goodness. Miniature paintings and drawings. It just leaves me in awe. People that can actually work those really tiny things and they just look incredible. Have you seen like the miniature crochet that people do for doll houses and things? Incredible.